Just admitting people to the Zoom. Sorry. I think it's all.
Reduce.
Okay, looks like people are in the meeting. Paul, can you unmute yourself and confirm that you can hear us? Paul Varga? Can anybody on the Zoom unmute themselves and let us know that you can hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yep. Oh, Paul. Sorry, we have a board member who's joining on Zoom and he's texting me. I'm just giving one of our board members another minute to log in. Ah,
All right, I think I got it that time.
can you hear us?
Yep. All right,
Okay,
thank
great.
you.
And just checking to see if there are any other board members or alternates on Zoom. I don't think there are. Okay, if at some point in the meeting, if somebody gets a text message and somebody's stuck in the waiting room, because I don't see it, just feel free to let me know. I'm gonna try to keep an eye on it. Okay, so the meeting is officially called to order at 7:03. This is the Board of Finance for those that are new. Roll call and seating of alternates. We'll start with me, Christina Davis, I'm present. Paul Varga,
Here.
Judy Austin. Here. Pam Summers.
Here.
Angie DeSanto is not present. Keith Lipker. I have not heard from Keith. I don't see him here. Okay, so we'll say Keith is not present. Holland Love.
I'm present.
Tim Rhodes, not present. And Hugh McKenzie, not present. Holland, I will seat you for Angie, who is not here. Okay. Communications. We got an update from the assessor on an adjustment to the grand list and also some more specifics around what the state law would allow us to do in terms of adjusting how we value motor vehicles. And so we'll probably get to that when we talk about the town budget or the general government budget. I got a request from Jeffrey Silversmith, who's about the planning POCD. And so he's gonna comment during public comments. And I just heard from the Board of Ed that they were gonna be prepared tonight to discuss what a 1% budget increase would look like. I also got an update from the fire department chief of what a 1% increase to their budget would look like, and that was distributed to the Board of Finance members before this meeting. Oh, I also heard from the Ashford delegation of the Region 19 budget. They coordinated a phone call and talked to me about what they're seeing in terms of the Region 19 budget. And again, we can talk about that a little bit more as we get into the school budget conversation. But I just say that I really appreciated them taking the time to reach out to the Board of Finance. And they understand how concerning things are this year. Okay, with that, we can move on to approval of minutes. So we have the regular meeting minutes of March 6, 2025. Would someone be able
I'll
to
make a
make a motion?
motion.
Pam, thank you.
I'll second.
Khalid seconded the motion. Are there any edits or corrections to the minutes?
I think you were missing the, having the attachment of the 35 questions that were posed to the general government. That we gave responses for.
Okay, we can add that to the minutes for this meeting, noting that that's the amendment to add the answers to those questions. Any other edits? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is public comment. So given the number of people, we are gonna limit it to 2 minutes roughly per person. I have someone who requested Jeffrey Silversmith to speak, and he has another meeting, so I'm gonna let him go first, and then we'll do people in the room, and then we'll do people on Zoom. One note for the minutes, Tim Rhodes, who is an alternate, is joining the Zoom. Hi, Tim, or wait. Hi, Tim. Okay, go ahead, Jeff, you're first.
Thank you, Chairman Davis. Hi, my name is Jeff Silversmith. I'm the I'm going into work mode. I'm the chair for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'm here to invite the members of the Board of Finance to attend a listening session we have. We are developing the new plan of conservation and development, which was in the Citizen. This is the 10-year plan for the town, for those of you who are not familiar with that. The last one was from 2015, the new one needs to be due for 2025, which is what we're in right now. And as I said, this is the vision for the town. We're making it a little bit different because of some interpretation of the statute. We're keeping a lot of this is Ashford, this is what this department does, this is what the economic development team does, this is what the Ag Commission does. However, the goals and objectives really need to be directed toward planning and zoning, and how planning and zoning can influence the effects that they do, as well as the development of planning and zoning in the town itself over the next 10 years. So this session that we're having, which is March 28th, Friday night, March 28th, from 6 to 8. I'll invite the crowd that's here also, because again, it's been in the Citizen, it's open to the general public. We're also inviting the specific commissions themselves, so we get a very robust group listening to what we've done so far. And more so, us listening to you. Are we going down the right track? Are we doing the right thing? Are we giving due course to the proper priorities that the town wants us to look at? We did do a survey last month, 198 responses to the survey, 486 written responses to our 3 narrative questions, very good sampling. And we're gonna be sharing that information too. So we hope you can make it. We're gonna serve pizza and refreshments, okay? So helping out a little bit. But again, we really invite both the public as well as the commissioners. So thank you for your time. And come with questions, come with input. We really want to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. All right, others who would like to speak during public comments? We'll start, and this is, so our agenda, just so people are clear, I know some boards have a later public comment. We don't have that on the agenda this evening, so if you do want to be heard, now is the time to be heard. So we'll start in the front row. If you could just stand up, project, and
My name is Dave Laporte. I'm on the Ashford Fire Department.
could you spell your last name?
LAPORTE,
Thank you.
212 James Road. So this proposal, every time I hear the numbers going up more and more and more, and right now on the paper they handed out, says $66,500 reduction to the fire department budget. Last year, the town was generous enough to give us $200,000 above what we were working on. It got us 24-hour coverage, 7 days a week, 2 firefighter EMTs on duty. With this cut, will immediately mean 48 hours goes uncovered. Because we're, we're a fire department and not the ABC widget company, we can't just plug and play people like you do in a private business. Nor can the one person cover the 2 people, right? So in a company, somebody can cover somebody else's duties. That's not how it works. So, so cut immediately mean 2 firefighters, 1 day. So I guess it would be up to the town, pick what day of the week they don't want coverage. If there is no coverage, that means 1 day of no coverage comes a missed response from our department, which means a delayed response because services have to come from Mansfield, Wellington, surrounding towns. So that money is a force multiplier. It's not just straight $66,500. That eliminates the 2 people, which then eliminates ambulance calls, which then eliminates the revenue we would use for the storm standbys with extra duty, the overtime. We only have 6 people, 2 on, 4 off. There are no spares. So when somebody calls in sick, the morning guy is held over for 12 hours and the night guy comes in 12 hours early because there's no spares. Otherwise, it's a big ding on the overtime budget. So, it also will mean no raises this year for us. And the Ashford Volunteer Fire Department is the lowest paid department in the whole area. We have a hard time bringing people in because nobody wants to work for peanuts. Some of us can get away with it, but you think about a young family with kids and insurance needs and stuff like that, we have no benefits. And they just don't come. They go to Mansfield, they go to Wellington, they go to the commercial ambulance services, they don't come here. So that's just gonna put us further behind the 8 ball with hiring additional personnel. So, I am looking to maintain what we have and get a little bit of an increase. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I missed it. What is your title? with
I'm
this?
one of the career firefighter EMTs.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
All right, Rick Quatley, Eastford Road, KouA, T as in Tango, LY. Good evening to all Ashford board members, finance, education, or otherwise. I'm sure you don't hear the simple statement of thanks enough, and that's where I wanted to start by recognizing all the hard work that the boards, in this case, Board of Ed and Finance, put forth annually in this process. It's by no means easy, not always enjoyable, but a critical engagement that falls into your collective roles and responsibilities. Ashford is a special place in so many ways. It has a foundation of principles that all else sprouts and grows from. These foundational principles were a large contributor to why my family chose to reside in Ashford when other options existed. I wanted to highlight what I firmly believe is not unique to my perspective, but much more widespread. It's been made clear that we citizens appreciate the lifestyle that comes with a quiet corner, as demonstrated by the collective rejection of past proposed construction or warehouse proposals. For me, it's not just a lifestyle to retreat to after the chaos of trying to run a business. It's all other foundational aspects of the town that's critical to what draws folks and makes the town special. In the marketing of business, we focus on uniques that set us apart from others in our space. Having gone through our schools districts in my other school districts in my youth and seeing how other districts operate and more eye-opening experiences in my adulthood, in no uncertain terms, I've come to realize Ashford School is unique. With our 3rd child about to graduate from Ashford School, I've seen, witnessed, and lived the process that the school puts forth for the betterment of those that attend, our youth, the foundation of this town's success. As we all know, a foundation is only as strong as the concrete that was poured. While some of us have struggled with the foundations that support our structures, make no mistake that Ashford School's foundation is built from the strongest aggregate and perhaps can be viewed as the strongest foundation in the town. This is clear by reflecting on what it does for our society and setting our future contributors on the path to success. It's on this theme I implore all in attendance, on a board or not, to see the school for what it is. Foundational to the success of our town and support the funding to continue it being that unique, as it truly sets Ashford apart and strongly contributes to making Ashford the attractive place it is. Again, thank you to all board members and the community in the whole. As a whole, I've always been of the opinion that when given the opportunity to do the right things, folks will rally to the call and support it, as they know not doing so contributes to cracks in the foundation, and even the strongest foundation, if not supported, can degrade, and no one wants that. Let's keep the unique and highly positive success going and support the Board of Education's request for funding. Thank you.
That was 3 minutes, but that's okay.
Sorry.
You were talking fast, I could tell. Any other comments in the room? Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me, I'm Kurt Love, and I live on Clarence Road. I'm a former middle school science teacher, and I'm a professor of education at Central Connecticut State University, a UConn alum, and a member of the Ashford Board of Education. I'm speaking as a father and as a resident. Cutting education funding, and even the threat of it, sends the wrong message. It tells all families, home buyers, and teachers that Ashford is not willing to invest in its future. It's a message that we just simply can't afford to send. This year's originally proposed education budget was right at the state average and actually lower than proposed budgets around neighboring towns. It was carefully considered and it balanced our needs with fiscal responsibility. The Board of Finance's request for mere 1% increase was not in line with what's necessary to maintain a strong school system. That decision, if carried forward, will have lasting negative impacts on our community. Many teachers are already looking elsewhere because of the message that was sent by the board for the 1% increase. And keep in mind that we have a teacher shortage, meaning that teachers will look elsewhere and will get jobs elsewhere. That's detrimental to our town. Ashford already offers lower salaries compared to surrounding towns. Teachers are seeing the instability and the lack of support and investment. They will leave, and if they leave, it's hard to get them back. On top of that, next year's financial outlook, as you all know, doesn't look very good. It sounds like we're heading into a recession, which is going to mean shortfalls for budgets all around. So this is not a good time coming up. Next year is going to probably be even better. I think the thing we need to understand is that cutting education means hurting the futures of our students. In our town, we have a high poverty rate. And as you know, education is directly linked to people's success in the long term, right, and lifelong. So by cutting education, we're doing a few things all at once. One is you're cutting the futures of people who need that, need all those supports. And second, you're also cutting the future tax revenue of the town. As education goes down, and people see it go down, and people leave, housing declines, obviously tax revenue declines. If this becomes the pattern, we're in real trouble, and we're really spiraling. We need to take this very seriously, and I know this is not easy, and I really do understand the rock and a hard place that you're all in. But I want you to consider this because I do feel like this would be a path that we just simply don't want to go down in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room that would like to speak? Okay. Anybody, person on Zoom? Anybody on Zoom? I would say maybe use the little raise hand button if possible. And Stephanie, if you can, you're the first one that popped up. So if you want to go ahead and speak, if you can unmute yourself.
Sure. Hi. My name is Stephanie West. I'm the mother of 3 children in Ashford School, and I'm the coordinator for English learner education in Sturbridge, Massachusetts. I'm here tonight to express my deep concern about the proposal to reduce the Board of Education's budget to just 1%. As a resident of this town and as someone who cares deeply about the future of our children, I want to stress how harmful this cut would be, not just for our schools, but for our entire community. First and foremost, education is the foundation of a thriving town. By underfunding our schools, we're jeopardizing the quality of education and ultimately the future of our children. Our teachers and staff are already stretched thin. Working with limited resources, reducing the budget further would make it even harder to maintain essential programs and keep our much needed staff. This cut would hurt our children's learning environment and limit their opportunities. Teachers will look elsewhere when the perceived instability and actual instability in a town. I've worked in 3 districts, and I'm telling you, I have left over instability. And your teachers work for way less than what they're getting paid right now. I work 18 minutes away from here and I get paid $12,000 more on the same step as the teachers that work here in Ashford School. My kids, despite working in a larger district and working all over, Ashford School is incredibly special. I've never been in an environment where I've felt more love and care and support for the children that go there. And I say this as a seasoned educator. I am imploring you to please reconsider and fully fund the Board of Education budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom, if you could use the little raise hands, you should pop up. If you can't figure out the raise hand, you can just unmute yourself. Okay, I'm gonna assume that means nobody else on Zoom wants to speak. Going once, going twice. Okay, we will move on. Let me check the chat. No, there's nobody in the chat. Okay. Okay, so. Cindy's not. No, okay, that's by design. All right, just want to make sure she didn't get left out. She was on an airplane. Oh, okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is select women's update. Would you like?
There's
to-
nothing of note since last week.
Okay. The next item after that is presentation of the revised 2025-2026 Ashford Board of Education budget. Before we get to that, because it's a new crowd, people that haven't necessarily been to our meetings and seen the progression of what's been going on, I just want to do a little table setting to help everybody understand how we got to where we are today. So, my sort of speech on this is this. There are three major headwinds we are dealing with our budget this year. One is a proposed double-digit increase with the Region 19 budget, which is E.O. Smith High School. It's a regional school district. We as a town are sending town to that district. This board does not have any control over that budget. That's a separate board and they make their own decisions and we are basically on the receiving end of that. That doesn't mean we don't have an influence on that budget as a community. I would encourage you to look into the Region 19 budget and ask questions and attend the public hearing that is on, I believe, March 25th. That being said, like this board can't control that budget. So right now it's at an 11% increase. That is a very significant number. That impacts us a lot. The reason why it's so large is not, they're asking for, I think, 4 or 5% overall. But our share of students is going up this year, where Mansfield and Wellington's numbers are going down. Ours happen to be going up, which means we have to take on a larger burden of the budget. So that's problem number one that we're facing. Problem number two is a decrease in state funding. A big part of our budget, particularly for Ashford School, is the ECS funding, equalized cost sharing or something like that. That's going down by 3% or projected to. It's not a final number because we don't have a state budget yet, but that is a significant number. So that's contributing to the pressure on our budget as well. And then the third issue is a bit of an arcane one, but I'll have to just bear with me as I explain it. The state changed how towns and our assessor are supposed to value motor vehicles. And that there's all sorts of history on that. And I won't get into it, but what that resulted in is an initial motor vehicle grand list, which is partly what we can tax. We can tax cars, we can tax houses, etc. That motor vehicle grand list initially was going down 18%. So that means we can't raise as much in taxes from motor vehicles as we have in the past. So that creates a gap in the budget, just like the lack of state funding creates a gap and now the Region 19. So you have gaps stacking on top of each other, creating an issue where we either have to raise taxes significantly or we have to curb our spending. So that's where we're at. There will be numbers that trickle in. We got revised numbers on the grand list that, so addition of some trailers so that increased the grand list slightly. There's also an option for us as a town now. The state has passed a law like 2 weeks ago that we can change how we value cars. That will help a little. None of these things are going to erase the problem, however. I just want to be clear. It's not like in a week, oh, everything's fine again. No, it's going to be a challenge. So again, those are the three issues. Region 19, big increase. State funding going down. Motor vehicle valuations, all elements that we in this room cannot control. We can only control what we tax and what we spend. So I just wanted to give that background for everybody. In light of those issues, when we met last week as a Board of Finance, we had looked at the Ashford Board of Education ask of 5.46% increase. And the general government budget ask of a 4.83% increase. If we were to put that to referendum, along with the Region 19 increase of 11.29%, that would result in an increase of taxes to the average homeowner of 12.2%. That would be a mill increase of 4.2, which is very large. Historically, that's not common at all to have a 4.2 mil increase. So given those numbers and the factors that we discussed, this board voted to ask for the Board of Education and the town to come back and say, what would a 1% increase in each of these budgets look like? That would result in a 7.3% increase in taxes. So it's not like we're getting off free with a 1% increase. It's not like everything's fixed. And that would be a 2.5 mil increase. Again, significant increase that may or may not have support. So none of this is easy. And nobody here, I don't believe, is excited to cut back on anything. But those are the factors that we're dealing with. So with that being said, did I miss anything, or any board members want to chime in? If I've missed anything on that summary?
Sounded good.
That's right.
Well, summary.
So that being said, that's why we're here tonight. That's why we asked to see what a 1% increase would look like. Because, and I'll just say that the other thing is our responsibility as a Board of Finance, we're the board that's responsible for putting, sending a budget to town meeting, which then goes to referendum. And what nobody wants is a budget that fails at referendum. And we've all seen it happen in other towns. It's happened in this town many years ago. It hasn't happened recently. But when that happens, then you start to lose control over what gets cut, and it can get dicey, and it can fail multiple times. I know that happened in Coventry last year. Wellington's budget failed last year. So that's something we're very cognizant as well. We want to make sure that we can put forward a budget to referendum that everyone on this board feels can pass, because we don't want to set anybody up for failure. So with that being said, if you want to share, Jane, what you guys have to share.
Yes,
Do I take one and pass? one?
yes, please. And Paul, I apologize. I don't have that electronically. So I will talk through the key points. Let me know on Zoom if you're raise a hand or something if you're having trouble hearing us. So the Ashford Board of Education met last evening to attempt to address the request by the Board of Finance to show what a 1% budget increase would look like to our school. We were very clear when we, did our initial presentation that, the majority of the funding that goes to Ashford School goes directly to salaries. And so the Board of Education in our meeting, we were unable to cut our budget to 1% without compromising the programming that we offered to our students. So what you see in front of you is an estimated increase of 2.49% to our existing budget. And I just want to say that, I appreciate the hard work that the Board of Finance has to do in looking at their constituents, which are all the people that live in this town. Those people are also our constituents, but on top of that, we have all the people who are not voters, who are our constituents. The little people who don't get a second chance at second grade. You've heard me say it before, if you've heard me, present to the Board of Finance in the past. The people in that building are there because that's what we need to provide the services that our students need. We have consistently received increases over the last 4 years that are below the inflation rate. And we've been able to offset some of that with funding we received after COVID through ESSER grants. Those grants are gone. We can no longer absorb any sort of less than inflation increase. And in addition to that, everything is getting more expensive, as everyone knows in their household, everyone knows in their business. That's just the reality. Our electric is up so much. There are so many things that are increasing. Insurance is a constant issue. So how we arrived at the budget, the revised budget proposal that we've presented tonight is number one, we got some good news on the health insurance front. So this affects the town budget as well, since we are in on the insurance together. But we had initially been told to expect an approximately 10% increase in premiums. The insurance state plan came out with an update between when we did our original proposal and now. That said, we could expect more like a 7% increase. So the top line is a reduction of just over $55,000, almost $56,000 due to that change in insurance. Obviously, that is an estimate because staff members can change their insurance coverage when the open season happens in June or May, which happens after the budget. The second two items you see is Subscript and Dreambox. Those are items that we have decided to move from our Board of Ed budget with the hope that they will be covered by federal grants. Obviously, that's a gamble. These are curriculum subscriptions that we need, but we have in the past been able to fund some of this large investments in curriculum software through federal grants. Since these are smaller numbers, we are hoping that the federal grants we receive, even though that is a gamble at this point, will cover those. There are some other small numbers that we typically pay someone to do our meeting minutes. We have for the past year not been doing that. We've been using an in-house staff member who is handling that on top of her other responsibilities. The goal was to remove that from her and go back to the typical process we had of having someone else do the meeting minutes. We've removed that $2,100. There's small other things related to internet, PT services, which is physical therapy services, outsourcing of some services for special ed that we think we can cover in-house. Then we get to really the biggest bulk, which is the elimination of 2 staff positions. So one of those, fortunately, upon hearing the request from the Board of Finance, the superintendent was approached by a staff member who said she had been considering retiring, and with the hope of saving other staff, she would retire at the end of this year. That does not mean we don't need her position. That means we think we can shuffle people around to cover that and not fill that position. That's not ideal. This 2.49% request is not an ideal budget. It's not even a great budget. As a matter of fact, this was not unanimously approved by the Board of Education because 2 members could not bring themselves to justify reducing this to this level. The other staff member, is, again, someone we need, but someone we're optimistic that maybe we can shuffle people around in a way to, accommodate the services that we're losing. That is the best we can do at this point without compromising services. We have a priority of giving our children the best education they can get. And below the 2.49%, we don't feel we can do that adequately. There are employment costs, obviously, if there's a layoff that's necessary with this increase, with the 2.49% increase, there would be a layoff required. And so obviously there would be associated unemployment costs that get added back into our budget when we reduce the salary line. So that is how we ended up where we are. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jane about that? Yeah, I don't think I have any questions either. It's pretty clear. And I think we have a lot as a board to consider, and then we're gonna talk about on the general government side as well. But I think this is very clear. I don't have any particular questions about it.
I just add one thing. Kurt mentioned, the average increase. So, the data we were presented last night by the superintendent is that across the state, Board of Eds are requesting a 5.5% increase on average. So our original request was in line with what we're seeing statewide in terms of what happens when this, with the loss of these ESSER funds and the inflation rates that are hitting schools in towns.
One thing I forgot to mention about Region 19, someone pointed out to me that just something to keep in mind. I'm just looking at my notes, forgive me. So our share of the Region 19 budget is going up this year. It's going up next year as well. It's projected to. So we, our share of the Region 19 budget this year is, or the coming fiscal year is 19.7%. And the following year it's projected to be 20.4%. So that's something we need to keep in mind, that what we're facing this year, we are likely going to face again next year. So. I think we can move on. I just want to say that we obviously appreciate the Board of Ed's efforts on this, and I understand that it's difficult. And nobody wants to be here having these conversations.
If I could comment as well.
Yeah.
I just want to add to some of the information we have from Region 19. They had a meeting last night. Yes, it was last night, I think. And what they're now looking at, and this is not official, is their projected revision. We could see the percentage go down, for us to go down to 9.77.
So a 9.7 increase instead of 11.
Instead of 11.29. Right. Okay, their next budget meeting is March 18th. Let's see if there's anything else. That was it. Oh, and I have also talked with our members on that board, and one of the members from Wellington. And they're on, some of them are on that committee.
Okay, Catherine, do you want to share?
And actually, one more comment.
Oh, okay.
Is that one of the things that Region 19 is looking at is a rolling, using a rolling average method of managing increases. Right now, we have, like for us, last year it was Wellington, you know, each town has it. Now Mansfield has, they have almost 50% of the students So they always have the big bill. So rolling average they're looking at history and going, what would it have been if we had a rolling average of what it would be? So instead of these spikes, it would work like this. So we wouldn't have those extreme spikes. They need to pull more information together so they can bring that forth. It requires a legislative change in the legislature to do that. So, it wouldn't be able to be put in place for this next fiscal year, but there's the potential it could be put in place for the following fiscal year, provided all three towns agree to it, and there would be a town votes on it, as far as I know.
Well, and I think it would have to pass.
Oh, they have
The
to,
Hartford Capitol, the legislators would have to.
yeah, I
approve
don't think
it.
they're gonna have as much trouble in the legislature as they might, making sure the message gets out clearly to the public in the three towns to approve it. But we'll see, that's just what they're looking at. And they've been looking at it for a while, and I'm very proud to say that the Ashford members of the Region 19 sit in the top positions. They're real workers. And the other thing too is the way Region 19 is supposed to work, based upon the town's, individual town's population, whatever. We have a percentage of a vote. Ashford has a percentage of a vote each time our people vote. The great news is that board they have not been paying attention to that at all. They typically come to full agreement on what they're gonna do. So the collegial atmosphere on that board is a plus, I think, for all of us.
And Region 19 is dealing with the same issues that Ashford is dealing with in terms of state
And
funding.
they're very aware of this issue.
And the declining student population, it's hitting all school districts the same.
I know one of the things, what is it called, Columbia? They're sending their students out, and I believe, Region 19 and RAM are vying for those students, and that brings money in, that's additional money. The tuition students don't get anything except the classes, they don't get to participate in the other stuff, they're not an extra expense from that end, so. Yeah, anything they can do to increase their, get the tuition students is helpful.
Shall we talk
And
about
now
the
I'm
general
up.
government?
Can
Yes.
you all hear me? So I don't need to stand. Thank you. Okay, Bill, is Bill here?
I'm here.
I wanted to give you a copy of this. I couldn't find you. There you go. So, what we did is we reached out to all of the departments to come back with whatever they could find to reduce in their budgets, their individual department budgets, for those things which they can control. And they came back. Give me a second here, just want to pull this up. You have Christina,
Mhm.
you have the page I sent to you. You may want to put it up on the screen.
Oh, did you?
Not everybody has a copy of this.
Well, I sent it to Tim and, but did you email it to me?
Yes,
I don't see it in my email. Unfortunately. But
that's funny. When I went to send it, the board, what you have for an email looked different in the system.
I didn't
Did you just
receive it.
double check?
Yeah, I'm looking right at my email. I definitely didn't get it. I sent it to Paul and Tim, and I think this is cleared up. People will be able to follow.
Actually,
I mean, you could email it to me right now.
I'm going to send it to you anyway, even though you're saying you don't need it.
While you do that, Catherine, I do have another question. About this fiscal year. the state is supposed to be giving out another $40 million for this fiscal year for special ed, is that right? I have not seen anything that tells town by town what that means.
Correct.
Do you know anything more than I do?
No. The rumor is that, so everybody was supposed to get a bunch lower than what they'd expected to get. And whatever is passing will bring us closer to what we were expecting to get, but not to it. But nobody's seen the town by town breakdown yet. That's my understanding, but.
BOF, ashford@ashfordtownhall.org.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. Thank you for your patience. All right, send it off again.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it, so let's just make do with paper.
Okay.
If it comes through, I'll get it on the screen as soon as I can.
All right, so what we did, again, we went to, we had each of the departments come back with what they could cut. And, in addition, the Board of Selectmen went through all of the budgets in detail. Also. Sherry Susie, our treasurer and finance manager, went through the revenues, the anticipated revenues with me. And we were able to identify, adjustments that could raise our that would raise our that do raise our revenues to $60,000 more than we originally anticipated. And you'll see that on the presentation that's here. We, the areas where, and what you see here is you see what was submitted previously with a 4.83% increase. And, based upon the areas that we were able to cut back on, along with the fire departments, when they came back with theirs, it was truly a cut to 1%, which is untenable. We literally cannot afford to affect our public safety in that manner. So health insurance, unfortunately, so what you see here is with adjustments of the revenue that we identified, it came to a 1.65% increase without restoring the fire department to what they should be. So the expense adjustments were in health insurance. Unfortunately, we did a double check on the census data that we had for insurance. And while we thought we were going to experience the same thing that the school did with a 6.9% increase, ours went up. And that's because we had one person went to a two-person thing, another one went to a family plan. And then two went to family plans, and then we had another new one. So incredibly, it brought us up, and that was not a happy thing to find out. The other departments went through, we reduced part-time wages in these particular departments. Parks and Rec did a reduction. Babcock Library reduced to almost 1% increase. The senior center, we actually took monies out of their program expense. And youth and social services was cut by $2,000, two different areas. Tech services and software that we had planned to have, we took out. for example, the assessor software, conferencing, training, and advertising. In terms of revenue adjustments, the 60,000 was in pistol permits, WRTD, insurance dividends, prior year levy, interest and lien fees, motor vehicle supplemental, transfer station light metal, and miscellaneous. We also are looking at the building department, and actually, we call it land use, but everybody else calls it building department. We're looking at increasing the fees that people have for permits. Right now, we're at $12 and change, $12.50. We're thinking of increasing those to $15 per thousand. Another thing that I found out today is that the dispensary that's going in on Route 74, the town will be acquiring 3% of their retail sales. That's part of what they'll get in addition to the taxes they pay. So we don't know how much that revenue will be, but I'm letting you know that, and they plan to open this month.
So Catherine, we were able to get this on the screen now. I think.
What happened is,
I had to take a picture of it. Paul emailed it to me.
okay,
But it's there.
all right.
So sorry, the dispensary revenue
I didn't get
is
that.
not included in this revenue
No, because I just found out about it this afternoon.
adjustment. Okay.
And also, I don't know how much that is. What I can do is check with the Wellington First Selectmen. Because they have a dispensary over there, which closed temporarily, it's opening as well, reopening. And they get 3%, their town has. So
And do we know when that would open?
it's opening this month.
Oh, it is, okay.
Is Jeff Silversmith here? Yeah, I think he knew what the date was. Okay, and, based upon the cuts that we put in and the revenue of 60,000, extra revenue that we identified of 60,000, the net increase would be 1.65%. However, we highly recommend that the $66,500 that was taken from the that was taken out of the budget that was sent by the fire department be restored. We cannot afford to not have 48 hours of man-hour coverage in a week. This is a public safety issue and that cannot happen. I've also looked at each of the departments in terms of our staffing for our departments. We have one person, first of all, the people in our departments, your tax collector, your assessor, your town clerk, your land use department, your finance department. We have one that they have to have special skills and special certifications. And some of them are there by state statute. So we only have two departments where we have two people. And one is the town clerk's office. We have an assistant town clerk that is needed, absolutely needed. That's also a union employee. Just so you know. The other department is the finance department. In the finance department, we have more than enough work for the two people we have there, and one of them is part-time. So the finance manager, treasurer, Sherry Susie, she's a full-time employee. So those are the only two departments where we have more than one person. We cannot afford to cut hours or cut services, and by reducing them to part-time, taking those kinds of dramatic steps. So my concern is that, and you can't combine the departments either because they have specialized skills. It's not like we can have a person floating between a couple of departments as a key person. So that's where we stand at this point. And so with the fire department restored, their full request restored, it would be a net increase of $133,396, and that is a net increase percentage-wise of 3.3%. Questions?
So I want to make sure I understand the math, because we're talking about net, we're subtracting out revenues, and that makes it a little confusing. So the number that you're coming forward with tonight of the revised budget is 4,169,714. And then, and let's see, that would be
And that's without the fire department being restored.
right. So that's, what percentage increase?
1.65.
4042. I appreciate you. I'm just gonna double check. Make sure we all get the same number.
Yeah.
So, oh no, I didn't get the right number. Hold on.
I just have to pull it down. I work with so many variations of this.
714 divided by. 4.42. I get 3.1%. What did somebody else say? Oh, yeah, no, but that's subtracting out revenue. And I
Yeah,
wanna
you're trying to.
do the
without
number,
revenue.
um,
That's an easy enough thing to calculate. Pulled up the wrong thing.
makes for really good TV. People doing that.
Teachers.
Yeah,
I guess you didn't get that email from EO about the math documentary. They're inviting everyone to saw that.
I didn't get a math. Yeah, okay, so. If we were to go with the number 4,169,714, that would be a 3.14% increase.
Yes.
But we're saying that we're gonna increase grants, fees, and other income by 60,000. Which is how we get to the lower number. 60,270. That's. So our grants, fees, and income would come in at 4,129,232 with that $60,000 increase. Okay. And then. The secondary ask is. We really don't want to go with this 4.17 million number. We want to, well, 4,169,714. We want to go with 4,176,214. And if we did that, that's a 4,176,214. That's a 3.3% increase.
That's with the net increase, with the 60,000 applied.
No, I don't think that's net. I think that's just the increase.
Did I get it wrong?
Oh, wait a minute. I think that's where I'm confused. Cause I think, cause you're taking out the 60 down below. I want to know what the general government budget total, not the net, but the total would be adding in this 66.5 for the fire department. I think it's 4,236,214.
Yeah, all you have to do is take the 60,000 out.
Right. So that would be a 4.78% increase.
Christina,
Yes, Paul.
just making sure I
Save us
understand.
all from the math.
No,
please.
yeah, I'm just trying to make sure you're right. So that 4,169,714, the revised number, that is what the budget will be That's the new request, not including the revenue adjustment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if you added in the 66.5 for the fire department to that, you get the 4,176,214. That's the actual request, which is 3.3% over last year.
If I add 4,169,714,
Yeah,
and I add 66,500,
you should get,
I get 4,236,214.
And bear with me, I'm just trying to pull up my spreadsheet here.
I'm trying to do, no, yeah, all right, my apologies, I pushed the wrong button. You are correct. Yep.
So, yeah, so,
So it's taking out the revenue.
right.
Yeah,
right.
that takes out the revenue, yeah.
Treat the revenues separately, so,
So the true increase, the true number is 4,236,214.
right. And that would be 4,236,214. That would be a 4.78% increase. So that's quite a bit over 1%.
We wouldn't have been hit as hard as we were if we hadn't had that surprise insurance change.
Mhm.
I'll just do this. $4.78. That's an increase of $193,396.50, not 50 cents.
Yes, okay, that's what I get as well. And again, so this 66,500 for the fire department.
That was the difference between what they, between what they gave us as a new figure and, they took it down to 1%. And the previous figure. So that was just
And it's
adding back the monies they took out when they went down to 1%.
It's basically paying for 48 hours of coverage.
It's more than 48 hours. They did cuts in other areas.
Mhm.
But the most important thing is to make sure that we don't have a reduction in staff.
What were we at in terms of coverage before last year? Because we weren't fully paid at that point. We were, it was what, 1 12-hour
I
shift?
think we can let somebody from the fire department.
Yeah, so
answer
what
that.
we were doing is we had 18 hours of coverage per day,
Mhm.
7 days a week. So we were coming in at midnight, and going home 6 PM the night. The theory being from 6 PM to midnight, you know, hopefully the volunteers would show up and really wasn't happening, so. We had to go full staff because we were just missing too many ambulance calls. And part of that is those other towns, while they'll more than happy to cover us if we need them. Because we can't get a crew together, irritates them.
And I can add to that too. I can remember last year, the number of calls that have been missed was a really high number.
Now, the only reason we miss them is because we're already out.
Understood.
So what other questions do the board members have about the general government numbers that are being presented?
So what's the total with the fire department? Like,
The total for the
correct
fire,
total?
the total for the fire department is,
No, I meant I got it.
You mean the
with the
general
fire
government
department,
number?
the total is $4,236,214.
Thanks.
And the difference, if you want, is 193,396.
Well, do we want to see what all this does to the mill rate and the taxes? If we don't have questions specifically about these numbers, I can take everybody through what this actually looks like.
Yeah. Okay, so you're gonna put new numbers in there. Do you have new numbers for revenue, et cetera?
Yep.
Okay.
Hopefully everybody can see.
Um,
Uh,
we can make it a little bigger.
I don't know if I can. Maybe I can.
Better.
I'm trying to. I'm not gonna get into the grand list numbers right just yet. Let's see. Wow. So let's look at. If we, instead of this 1% number, let's look at. If we put in 4. Oh. Read no only. Yeah. Might have to just do it on my computer. And tell everybody what it says. Okay. Okay, let's see. So if I plug in these numbers, 4, 2, 3, 6, 2, 14. And then 4, 8, 8, 5, 3, 8, 6, 4. And I leave region 19 alone. I'm just gonna double check. on my end. Right. Yes. So. With a general government budget of 4,236,214 and a school budget of 8,853,864 and leaving region 19 as it is proposed, that would amount to a mill rate on personal property of 37.763, which would be a mill rate increase of 3.4 mils and a tax increase of 9.9%.
And you've left region 19 at 11.29%.
Correct. Now, so that's a tough pill to swallow. If we take into account the revised grand list that has these addition of these trailers, that's what it comes down to. The numbers we're still, even with that revision up, we're still looking at a 3.2 mil increase or an increase in taxes of 9.5%. Now, option 3 is if the town opts to go with a new way of valuing cars, which does result in people paying more in taxes. It's just people who own cars versus homes. That would get us to a 2.855 mil increase and an 8.3% increase in taxes,
And that includes region 19.
being at 11%. Even if we can get, even if I put region 19 at 9%, let's do it. Let's do it for fun, so we can see.
They didn't have it at 9.
9.77 is what
give me a
happens,
second.
the 9.8.
9.8.
Yeah, it was 9.77,
Wait, why did that go up?
and that's unofficial.
Oh, no, wait, sorry, I did the wrong number. I increased over the wrong thing. So even if region 19 comes in at 9.8,
Okay,
then with the numbers as discussed and changing how we value cars, we're looking at a 2.679 mil increase and a 7.8% increase in taxes for the average person. So the question for the board is, do we think that is something we can put to referendum, those numbers? Do we think it has a chance of passing? Judy, I see you shaking your head. Please share.
I don't see it passing, I mean. But then again, you know, there's people that say whatever, they'll pay anything, so, I mean, it basically is up to the town, but. Like the man said before, we have a high poverty rate. And we're talking about the 2.7 mil just on the property, let alone the car taxes. And don't we have something coming down the pike for reevaluation too next year?
Yeah,
So,
next year is a
If we
reval
don't
year.
do it now, we're still gonna be doing it next year. It just, at some point, we have to do something. It's unsustainable. The fire department, 100% agree. We need that. Teachers, 100% agree. We need that. Always support both. But there's other ways that we can look at things too, and we just have to get there.
Other comments?
Christina, Paul.
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, first of all, I'm just gonna say that as a board member, I thought when we voted to ask for 1%, that's what we were gonna see. To get an idea of what the true impact would be. I know that that's what the fire department did. And obviously that showed the cut in service. And I understand that there would be impacts at the school level, at the board of ed level, and at the town level. I have to agree with Judy. It's unsustainable. We can't continue down this path. I don't think these numbers, I don't know. If you ask the people in the room there, maybe they're happy with it. I don't know. Some of them are taxpayers in town, and I can't believe that if you ask them in private, if they'd be happy about the taxes going up that much, they'd be okay with it. I think that somebody somewhere needs to take a good hard look at what we actually need in the town of Ashford. And where the town is going, because it can't keep going the way it is. Which is probably why I'm on this board, because I made my voice heard a lot prior to being put on or elected to the board, because I don't think what we're doing is sustainable. And somebody's gonna have to make the hard decisions. It kind of sounds like it might be the Board of Finance this year. Thanks.
I will tell you that when I asked the departments to look at their budgets, what I told them was, we need to have an overall increase of 1%. That's what we're aiming for, if we can get there. And I said, that they needed to take a hard look and make sure that whatever they put down, whatever they cut, that they knew they would have to live with it. So when they looked at it, they didn't go, hey, I'm just gonna eliminate my department, which is a suggestion that was made last week by a Board of Finance member. Another suggestion made last week was not to cut anything and put the budget out the way it was originally presented. Yes, you have to make decisions, but they have to be mindful of the fact that we need certain services in our town. You can't just go and close a tax collector office. Okay, again, someone suggested that we eliminate departments. Okay, we can't eliminate departments.
So I do wanna just, I just realized I didn't include the revision up on the revenues in my numbers that I just gave.
Yeah,
So let me just, it doesn't make a huge impact.
no, but at least it'll be in there.
But it's in there, so. With. The budgets, the 4,236,214 for general government. And the number that's on the sheet that was distributed by the Board of Ed. The corrected mill rate increase would be 3.085 and a 9% increase in taxes. And with the option to change the valuation on the motor vehicles, that would be a 2.492 mill rate increase and a 7.3% increase in taxes. So slightly different. Yeah, go ahead, Jean.
Just to address Paul's comment about the boards not getting, presenting what a 1% increase looks like. We did look at it, the superintendent, the business manager, Bob Carroll, and I looked at it. And it would essentially mean, eliminating 4 to 5 educational staff and, basically having a school that wouldn't function. We already struggle with coverage. We have continually not filled positions when they've become vacant in order to reduce our payroll. And I said it in our original presentation. Every year we ask the people in that school to do more with less, and it's not sustainable. I understand what Paul is saying about the increases being unsustainable, but you heard from a member of the public. Our teachers don't make as much as they do in Wellington, in Mansfield. They could go down the road and make $10,000 more. They don't even have to go 18 miles. That is something that doesn't sit well with me. And one of the things we were looking at every year is we cut even more from supplies at the school because we feel like it's an easy place to cut. Similar to what you were saying about changing the way the cars are taxed. What that means is that these teachers use more of their own income that is already lower than the other districts to then provide supplies to the classroom. Or they go to the parents and through Donors Choose and other groups and ask them to pay for those supplies. So the money is coming from somewhere in all of these cases. But the bottom line is a 1% increase in the school budget is unsustainable for the school. We can't meet the basic function of what we're required to provide in terms of special ed services and our regular education students at a 1% increase. It does not work. We looked at it, we looked at how many people would have to go, and it would not fly. So it was looked at. It was just not presented because it's not a realistic, feasible option.
Which was the same thing we came up with. Also, I had forgotten one other potential revenue source. It will be a revenue source, I'm sure. Today, my husband happened to stop by where the garage is, the old garage that had the nice painting. And I believe a car sales place is going in there. The property's already been sold. They're cleaning it up or whatever they're doing. That's what I hear. He talked with them today. The guys were cleaning. Okay, and they're clearing the land behind it. So there's another business that's coming over town.
Tim, are you still on the Zoom?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, do you have anything to say?
No, I've been taking it all in. You know, obviously, I'm a big supporter of the education and, you know, the town overall. You know, but I understand all the points that are being said where, you know, we have to draw a line somewhere, and it's not an enviable position we're in, but, you know, we've got a lot of work to do. That's all I can say at this point.
Okay, thank you. I personally would not feel good about sending a budget to referendum with 2 or more mill increase. I think that's, I think it will. I'm concerned that wouldn't pass in this environment. it's well above inflation. And I'm concerned that, again, yeah, if we don't take our medicine as a community, it's going to just become more and more painful, whether it's next year or the year after. So I don't know how we get below a 2 mil increase. But I feel like we have to get there.
When we presented it last week, and we said go down to the 1%. It was around a 2 million. increase.
Yeah. Let's see. 1%.
I mean, you could throw it out there as a 3.8 and then have it fail,
Well, it was.
and then it could even go even lower.
If both budgets were at 1%, it would be a 2.5 mil increase. So even that
So you're in a
It's-
little high.
is difficult.
But it always goes lower, it never goes higher if it fails.
Right, that's true. Yep. I don't feel like this board needs to vote on these numbers tonight. I would like, cause I'm doing this stuff on the fly and I could be making mistakes. And also we have these other factors of Region 19 and valuations in the grand list. So I would personally like to give it a week and see what happens in the next week. And then make some decisions as a board next week, but I don't know what that does
That does,
to everybody else.
yeah, that makes it impossible for us. Cause we have to have our budget book ready on what, Tuesday? And so Thursday night, we would find out that,
Well, no, cause we said in the budget calendar that we would approve a budget March 27th, so next week
as the
is
20th.
March 20th.
Yeah,
So it would give, there would still be technically another week.
I think that was part of the rationale for having us come
Right.
back quickly on this, as
Right.
quickly as
yeah,
this,
sorry, I'm skipping ahead a week.
which was a challenge in itself.
Right,
So. The budget books for the public hearing are supposed to be available April 2nd. So
right, which is a Wednesday. is
that's
that
a
correct?
Wednesday, yeah. So if we make a decision next week, or at least get really close to a decision next week, we still have until March 27th. That March 27th is our drop dead. We have to make a decision in order to meet all the statutory
And
requirements.
you're thinking about when you have your board
Right,
meeting and the fact you've got to update your system with the
Right.
new numbers.
right, we have to come up with a plan. Whenever you make a decision, we have to come up with a plan, and then we have to develop a budget.
Mhm.
Which, if it's the 27th, becomes incredibly challenging for us.
But the 20th is perhaps
20th.
more doable.
Is doable, but I will just point out that the longer, I mean, the reason there are so many people in this room and so many people on Zoom is because people are terrified for their jobs. As a person who recently was relieved of her job by the president, I know how that feels. The longer that uncertainty lingers, the more we leave people in limbo, the more people we lose. Because as we've discussed, every one of the people that work at the school doesn't know where they stand. They don't know where they stand, and they're not gonna sit around and wait. And as it was mentioned earlier, there are shortages of teachers
all over the state. They can go a number of places. And this happened the last time we had a big budget hit. We lost a lot of good people, and it's gonna happen again. And then we are gonna be in an even tougher position. So I understand. I'm not, certainly don't mean to take it out on you. I know you guys have a lot of factors that you're considering when you put this all together. But the longer the uncertainty lingers for the school about what our increase is going to be and what that means for the school, the harder it comes to, for us, and the harder it is for the people that live there. They have so much uncertainty.
Understandable.
Christina,
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
that applies across the board, so I don't think the Board of Education is solitary in that problem. The fire department is gonna lose people because people don't know what's gonna happen. I was the one who suggested cutting departments. If we get to that, I'll make that recommendation of what department I think it should be. But I think people in the town employees, people at DPW are all scared for their jobs. So to single out just the Board of Education is unfair to the rest of the departments. And, you know, it's not that I'm against the Board of Ed, it's just reality is what it is. And
To be clear, Paul, I can't speak on behalf of the other departments. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Board of Ed because that's the only department I can speak on behalf of, just to be clear.
And Paul, thank you for speaking on behalf of the other departments.
Well, with that in mind, would this board entertain voting on these budgets this evening? Do we feel confident that we
No.
can do that?
No.
No.
What do we feel that we need to know?
I kind of feel like we're sitting up here being the bad guys, but we've got to present it to the town because they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be taxed. And, you know, some of us can say, okay, fine, if our taxes are gonna go up 9% or whatever, we're okay with that. I don't want to see the fire department cut. They had brush fires down in South Windsor. I drove by one this week. I'm terrified of that up here with the drought and everything. I was a former teacher. I don't want to see the school losing teachers and staff. But how do we present this? I mean, you're talking to us, we understand. How do we present this and get it across to the townspeople who can't afford another 5% increase on their taxes? We know what's important, but how do you get blood from a stone? I mean, things are awful right now with the economy. You know, federal, state, towns. We're not a rich town. We're a rural town, a small town. We don't have the population that Mansfield has, or the money that Mansfield has, or the businesses. We're not big like Mansfield. We're really hampered by all of these things, what we can present and sell to the public and get them to agree on without it failing. And then having to go back and, you know, like Christina said, that's an awful position to be in, to try and convince people a little more, or you all to give up a little more. I mean, you know, we're hearing this is bare bones for you all.
One opportunity that you have, you can't really work with the numbers as well with it, is you do have the Ashford Citizen that will be going out for April. And if we have something in there at the point in time where it's going out, I don't think you won't have a totally solidified budget. Okay, so, but you can have something where you describe the factors that are going into this, what this perfect storm really is. I know that if you have, I wanted to actually talk with Christina, if in fact the Board of Finance is putting out something that talks about the factors that are going into this. I want to do something in my write-up that dovetails with that. So that's a small thing, but at least it's getting some information out to the public.
But like a town hall meeting or something.
Well,
Except people don't come
You'll
to
have
it.
the public hearing, and believe
Yeah.
me, I
think
believe there will
they'll
be
come?
plenty of people there.
Okay,
You
good.
may want to make sure you hold it over at Knowlton.
I thought about that.
And after that public meeting, you will then have the opportunity as a board to take another look at what's been presented and make adjustments. I know that that affects you and the selectmen, the general government as well, but those are two of the communication opportunities you have.
I'm just gonna throw out an idea. What if we said tonight that, you know, we're okay with these budgets if they both increased 2.5%. So that's basically what the school came back with, 2.5. And if the town, that would, that would be 2.5% for the general government. That would definitely require keeping the cuts to the fire department. But it wouldn't be 1%.
We cannot keep the cuts to the fire department. There is no way that we can keep those cuts in there.
Well, to be fair, we were existing as a town without a full-time fire department. It
Yeah,
was
but we don't
only the
have a
last
full-time
year.
fire department.
But to
We
be-
have some full-time workers that are paid because we couldn't get enough volunteers.
But to be fair, we didn't have, some monitor at the dump. We didn't have a $30,000 contingency, you know.
We cut our contingency in
Yeah,
part of
there's-
this, we cut it
There's
down to
things,
20.
I'm just saying, we can look at other things. The same with, like with the school, I mean, we asked for the 1%, we didn't get that view. But the count of the children are going down, and usually you can cut lower than what you had last year if the quantity of children are going down. That's not the case this year. We didn't do that. We
Okay,
didn't
but
do
I
that.
would refer you to the numbers, I don't have them with me unfortunately, that were submitted with our original budget packet. Our population has stayed fairly steady. If you remove 2 or 3 children, that doesn't eliminate a classroom. So we're fluctuating 2 to 3 kids in a grade,
I
and that's a big
understand.
percentage when you look at a school of 400 children. But it doesn't suddenly mean you can have 1 first grade. It means you still have to have 2 first grades. So that's the challenge. Schools like Mansfield, because they have a bigger population, they can, a fluctuation like that wouldn't even make a blip. Whereas here, 2 to 3 children looks like a big percentage change, but it's not a classroom. And that's the reality. I mean, we can't suddenly have a 40-person first grade. That doesn't fly.
And I said, we didn't do that. We could do that, but we didn't do that.
I think what we have to remember too is to respect the people who are actually living this, okay, who are doing the work. Who are coming up with these budgets based upon what they understand for the domain that they're responsible for. Is very hard, I think, for people who are on the Board of Finance who aren't involved in day-to-day management of the town. Who are not, part in the day-to-day of the school. So the people who have come back with these numbers are the people who are doing that. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned about arbitrary cuts that are made that, don't make sense.
What do others think about saying 2.5% for both the general government and the town?
I think at 2.5%. I'd have to cut it.
Well, I don't know about that, because
We'd have to cut staff.
let's look at the numbers. So that would be 2.5% over last year for the general government would be 4,143,888. And that's 4,143,888. 4,169,714. That's 25,826 less than the top number, the general government.
You're saying a further cut of 25,826
From that
after
4,169.
restoring the fire department?
No, it would include the cut to the fire department. And that 25,000, if you have 20 in contingency, then you could take the 20 out of contingency and find another 5,800.
I couldn't hear the last part of it. You were looking down. I didn't.
So you could take, you said there's 20 in contingency still?
There's 20 in contingency.
20,000.
So here's what was discussed. The selectmen said, okay, we could take everything out of contingency. And then what we'd have to do is whenever we needed additional funds, if something runs over, and that can happen, whether, something with the public works or whatever, just based upon the storms, et cetera, that we would have to keep coming back to you. Whenever that happened, we would have no buffer at all to cover anything that goes over. What we did do is we reduced it, and we did it before, we reduced it from 50 to 30, and then we reduced it again to 20.
I think there's an argument to be made that if there's a year to have nothing in contingency, this would be the year. And essentially, we have an unassigned fund balance, which is the town's contingency.
So we can only come back to you once per department. So what we would have instead is we would, in all likelihood, wherever we went over, we'd have to run in the red until the end of the fiscal year and come back to you with, we need these kinds of adjustments. My concern is that I don't want to run over the entire budget because we have a couple of items that went up by, $5,000. So I'm just letting you know, that's the harsh reality when you're working with this. And during the course of things, yeah, there are things that come up that are not necessarily planned for Veterans Day last year. We didn't have monies set aside for Veterans Day and we had to put up monies for it. So we took it from contingency. So I'm just letting you know, that's what it's like on a day-to-day basis.
What do others think about what I'm proposing? We see exactly what we get with a 2.5% increase on the school side. And with a 2.5% increase on the town side, we would have cuts on the fire department and everything listed here. And then another approximately 26,000 would have to come out of the general government budget. What do people?
What does that bring us to if you?
Good question. Let me just double check my numbers, make sure I have the right revenue number, yes. So if we did that, what I'm saying, and also did the change with the motor vehicle valuations, we would have a mill rate of 36.747, which is a 2.383 mill increase. So still pretty steep. I can give you the percent on the taxes.
The change with the tax on the motor vehicles, is that a suggestion or was that like passed by the state that we have to reduce?
So, yeah, so that's a good question, a good point. Give me 1 second. So the town has the option to, and the town, meaning the Board of Selectmen, has the option to vote to go with this new way of valuing cars, which would change the amount that they can value a car from the top line is 85% to 90%. So it's a very marginal difference. It's not going to solve our problems, but it will have an impact.
Yeah.
So has the Board of Selectmen discussed that, Catherine? Is that something?
On the change in terms of the cars,
Yeah.
I actually wasn't thinking that was a Board of Selectmen decision. I thought it was something that you would work with the assessor on. Your board
No,
would make
the
decision.
law, let me just go back to Lynn's email, but I'm.
And I just got some information.
fairly certain that it is, up to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, so the Board of Selectmen will add that to their agenda on Monday night, this coming Monday.
Double check.
Well, it'd be nice to know if it increased the revenue, you know, a little tiny bit or.
It will, yeah, no, the impact, there would be an impact, so it would be.
Cause I'm thinking of the fire department.
It's not enough to.
Yeah, I know.
And if you could clarify, what you're talking about is you were talking about an additional decrease of approximately $26,000 to the general government budget to bring it down to 2.5%. But that is without restoring the fire department.
Correct. That
Okay,
would-
so what you're really talking about is us, if we want to restore the fire department, which I think is critical, you're talking about us doing a 92,326 decrease to everything else.
If that's, yeah, I mean, if that's what you chose to do.
I think it's untenable. But we will do whatever you're saying we need to do. I do want to make sure that you get full support from everybody on this. In terms of, not only, the Board of Selectmen, et cetera, because we want to be supportive of whatever you put forth, but also the public. Because if that's the case, I think that there's gonna be some hits. In terms of free services that are provided to people in the town. Parks and Rec would be a good example.
Okay, I'm sorry, just going back to the motor vehicle issue, because Catherine, you said you thought it was the Board of Finance. According to Lynn's memo,
I thought you were the final.
this local option can be enacted by a vote of its Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
So it's not the Board of Finance that has to
all
decide
right.
it.
Well, we'll discuss it at our meeting on Monday and hopefully make a decision.
Mhm.
Like I said, we've just now started to get information about this. There was a back and forth that you had with, the assessor getting clarification. Okay,
Yeah.
that hasn't been shared with the other selectmen yet because we haven't had a meeting where we have that information.
Mhm.
So we'll do that Monday.
Again, I feel like I haven't really heard from the board members on what do they think about a 2.5% for the board, for the general government?
Yeah, what did you say the percentage was?
2.5 for each.
You want the
You did.
details. That would be a 6.9% increase to taxes for the average homeowner. And a 2.383 mill rate increase.
As far as the fire department, I think that's totally irresponsible to put it out there as the carrot on the decision. I'm sorry. Out of all the things that you could think of, I think that it's putting us on a very difficult situation. You know, it's not right. We have to have that. And everybody knows it.
I guess I honestly, Judy, I disagree. I mean, and I respect your opinion, but we survived as a town up until last year without full coverage. And so we can survive without it. I'm not saying it's ideal, but it's also not ideal to cut a teacher, and it's not ideal to reduce all these other things. Like, none of this is ideal.
none of
So
it's
it's
good.
just
I know
my
that.
opinion. It's not the final decision, but I think your point of view is valid, and so is mine.
But see, I have a hard time, cause like, I grew up here and I went to Ashford School, and like I said, I love Ashford School, I love the teachers and stuff, we had 500 students. And we had like a fraction of the employees at that time, but that's, you know, a long time ago. But they're equally important, I just think that having safety is more important than anything. You can't.
And just a reminder, you used the term "we survived without it" before. We are talking about somebody surviving. Okay, if we don't have anything to cover the call and there's a delay, that's life and death.
And you're correct, because back in the old days, everybody worked in town. Richie Whitehouse, Raymond ran from the garage. The guys were working from Yukon, Charlie Ravitsky and Andy Rittner, them guys came from Yukon. They were released to come fight a fire. Joey Gagney had his own business in town. There was a multitude of people in town during the day.
Different social structure for managing this.
And the volunteerism was there. Now, yes, you say we survived with it in years past, and that is true, but it's not gonna happen now. No way. Everybody works out of town for the volunteers we do have. It's just a harsh reality. And what started us with paid staff back in 2010 was someone who came to the firehouse having chest pains. I don't know who this person was, but they obviously had some pull, because shortly thereafter, after they blew up the roof at Town 5 Town Hall Road, we started off with a 6-month trial of paid staff during the week. It was like 7 to 5, Monday through Friday. And it just had to get progressively more staff to where we are now, which even now, two people on 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, that's a minimum. You look at the towns surrounding us, they have 4 to 6 people on every day, with enough people to cover shifts without blowing up overtime budgets. Because that's the problem too. If you only have 2 guys and you're on every day. So. You are correct. We did survive, but those days are gone, unfortunately. And it's not just an Ashford problem. It's a town-wide, it's a statewide, it's a countrywide problem.
Well, none of the problems we're dealing with are isolated to this town. Every single thing that we're dealing with is happening everywhere. It's not unique by any means. All right, maybe we need to table discussion of the general government budget. Are we comfortable with the Board of Ed budget as presented? Is there support to vote on that budget? We could vote on just the education budget if there's a level of comfort with this 2.5%, 2.49% increase. Because we could vote on that tonight, and then we could have another week to get more details on the general government side. Maybe a line item that we could review next week. And maybe some more numbers come in terms of motor vehicles and et cetera. Then we can make a decision next week on just the general government budget.
On your calendar, when was what were your decision-making dates?
March 27th is the drop dead.
Right, and we want to make sure that school has there so they can adjust their budget because of that.
What is the temperature of the board members on the 2.5%, 2.49% on the education budget?
I'll vote on that.
I will also.
I don't think we have enough information. You're waiting on numbers that we don't even know yet. And I'm not gonna make a decision on a Board of Ed budget and leave the general fund budget out, but we don't know what Region 19 is gonna come at. You're still talking about motor vehicle tax changes. I don't think it's fair to the general fund, the general government budget, to lock in the Board of Ed budget, and then everything's gonna be left on the general government budget. That's completely, it's not right at all, period. That's why.
So just to let you know, we will not know Region 19's number until March 25th. So we're just, that's when they make their decision. And so we like that's why March 27th is this board's drop dead date, because we wait on Region 19 to make their decision so that then we can make ours. So, but that being said, if people aren't comfortable voting.
No, because we still have a discussion with the selectmen about the vehicles. You know, there's a lot of things that we still need to know. You can't just like say okay to one and then dump it on the rest to figure it out. It's. We gotta leave that alone.
Sure. I'd like to make 2 points. Number one, Judy, I imagine you and I were in school around the same time. There were kids with special needs
in school. And if they were, they weren't serviced. So to compare when you and I were in elementary school and the services that were provided and the services that were needed to what exists now is comparing apples and oranges, because it's a very different scenario. So just, it's always something I try to remind myself when I think about how school has changed. It's a different classroom. Now, I think it's better, I think it's richer, but as a result, it does require more people. And there's no way around that. The other point I wanted to make.
Special, yeah.
No, but you said there were 500 kids at Ashford School and many fewer staff. My
Correct.
point was, back then, kids who had special needs were either in a separate school or they were not serviced in their traditional public school. That's a fact you can research.
And you're talking about managing the monies that are involved with that. the
Right.
cost of-
Yeah, I just didn't want you to direct it like I thought that
No,
special
no,
ed teachers
no.
were
No,
bad.
no,
That's
no,
not what I said.
I'm
I
not
said
trying
it
to
was
imply
smaller
that.
staff.
I'm just trying to explain to you why a larger staff is needed, where the population, the numbers might look like they're significantly smaller. We target it to the needs of the students, and the needs of the students are quite different now than they were at a time when the kids who had a need were sent to a different school or just struggled and didn't get the help they needed. So it's a different level of service that is legally required and also the right thing to do nowadays. Our school makes an incredible effort to keep kids in our building. That is a huge cost savings. On one of the board chair groups I was on recently, there is a town that over 10% of their budget is one outplaced student. Their entire education budget in their town, over 10% is one student. So everything we do, people sometimes, I think, see speech therapists on our thing or physical therapists and wonder why we have that in the building. Because those services in our building are like, I don't even know if you could do a ratio of what that costs if we have to send the child somewhere else for those services. So, I know we kind of veered on special ed, but I just, my point is classrooms back when we were in school are very different than classrooms are now. And it's not the same because kids aren't getting the same services that they are now than they were when we were in school. And, the other point I wanted to make was that, the Board of Ed, I understand that we didn't meet your request to go to 1%. But we did, in good faith and with our best effort, try to reduce our budget to where we thought we could get by. As you said, it's not ideal. None of these are ideal. We cut our request by over 50%. So I do feel like, while it may not be to 1%, we should acknowledge, like, there should be an acknowledgement of the amount of hard work that went into finding even that 50%, including, we are eliminating staff, and that is hard for everyone else is gonna absorb more work, because of those decisions. But that's the best we could do with this.
So there were some board members who said that they wouldn't want to vote on the school budget, and there are some who said that they did. You could make a motion if you wanted to, and we could see how that vote would happen. If anybody wants to make a motion. Doesn't sound like there's an appetite to make a motion. So I think that at this point, it makes sense to take a beat, reconvene next week with more detailed information and make a decision next week. That also gives the public time to know what was in these numbers, and come with additional feedback and share their points of view. What do folks think about that?
Yeah, I'd like to hear more from the public, how much they can sustain. I know there's usually the same Depending on group that comes in, I'd like to get more feedback of what they actually could. Yeah, I think that 3.08 is not gonna work. But it's my opinion.
Well, we're looking at, what did I say? I can't even remember now. Um. So we're looking at a 2.6 mil increase, maybe 2.461 if we cut the fire department. So that in that range, looking at a 2.5 mil increase. On personal property. And it's about a 7%, 8 to 7% increase in taxes.
And that's just the property tax.
That's just the property
And then the
taxes.
vehicles on top of it.
Yeah. For next week, could you provide a line item budget based on,
Yeah,
One
one
of
of
the
the
scenarios?
scenarios, we didn't put all the numbers into the system. We were working with the spreadsheet that I had. And we were doing that because we have to keep redoing the numbers in the system. And every time they get redone, we have to sync up the two things we're working with, because you can't do the calculations off of what's in the system, you have to have it in a spreadsheet, with always something. So, what you're asking for is a system report. Okay, I'm just, you need to know, I realized that the school was, against the wall trying to get this done within the period of time that we have to get it done. We have an even more limited staff to work on it, and so this has been pretty much all that we've worked on for the last couple of weeks, between making sure you have the information for the original presentation, everything was as good as we could get it. And then the 35 questions that had to be responded to. And now, and so you need to know that other things are sitting on the back burner while we're trying to do this. So we're making a concerted effort. We just don't have a lot of resources to do it. And every time I'm working closely with with Sherry Susie, on all the numbers. So. And then we have Board of Selectmen meetings as well, special meetings that we're holding to do this.
So is that a yes on a line item?
Oh,
For next
I'm
week.
assuming yes.
Okay.
And we will look at what we can do, beyond this. It's just that, again, I can't say it enough times, we cannot cut the fire department. So what that means is if that's how we're going and that's what we're forced to do, we will have to, I don't know, eliminate some things that are offered to the town for free. Okay, and our Parks and Rec is probably gonna get hit. Because that is not a department that is required. So, but it is one that the public uses. Okay, and I'm just saying, that is my opinion. I'll talk with the fellow selectmen about that.
And what about on the Board of Ed side? Could we see a line item report by next week reflecting these numbers?
I'm not sure what you mean by a line item.
So the report that the report that we saw on the budget presentation, there's a, right,
Yep, so just that.
from the accounting
spreadsheet.
system. With
Yep,
the total being 8,853,864.
yes. We can certainly get that.
So,
I assume that goes to your BOF email.
yeah, you can send it to me. So. And then we'll hopefully have more information on the motor vehicle valuation question. Maybe there'll be some news about the state budget and maybe there'll be good news about ECS funding. And then I think we have to make a decision next week. So I would say, just encourage everyone on this board to really look at the numbers. I will update my mill rate calculation based on these numbers and just double and triple check everything and send that out to the board members so you can see exactly. And I know we just talked about so many different numbers tonight. I'll try to put something together that's very clear to show what we're looking at. So that we can make an informed decision next week.
And I commend you for the work that you're doing by putting all of these calculations and figures together and looking at different scenarios. I think it's been a very useful tool and will continue to be a useful tool for your decision making.
Okay. So, we're not taking any action regarding the budget this evening. Agenda items for the next meeting is going to be, taking a final look at the two budgets. And I do want to also have a conversation about the capital budget, because that kind of has gotten lost in the whole
Oh,
the whole thing.
okay.
Just because I don't think this board has really asked questions about the capital budget. So I want to make sure we include that on the agenda.
Oh,
so
I'm
that we can
surprised
discuss it.
because the list I got of those questions said general government and capital improvement budget questions.
Oh, yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I just think we've been so focused on the school and the general government budget. I just think we.
All right, so if there are questions about the capital improvement budget, I need to get them ahead of time.
I'm not saying, I'm not saying submitting anything. I just want to have a conversation about it at the next meeting. I don't think anybody's gonna have any crazy questions that you wouldn't be able to answer in the meeting. And we do have time on that. We don't have to make the decision next week on the capital improvement plan. We could take until March 27th on that.
Yes,
I'm
you
not
could.
saying that I want to, but
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't expect that you would do that. I would think you'd try to make your decision next week.
unless anybody has any questions about the capital improvement plan right now, and then you could ask that of Catherine. But otherwise, just make sure to put it on the agenda. Remarks for the good of the board. I just appreciate everybody's time. I hope everybody understands the external factors that we're dealing with, and that it's not, a lot of this is not in our control, unfortunately. And even at the federal level, there could be bombs that are dropped within the next couple of weeks, so we don't know what the impacts could be. So it's just a challenging year. And I do think we have to keep in mind that it's probably gonna be challenging next year too. So we kind of have to be as thoughtful and respectful as possible as we go forward. And just thank you to everybody who took the time. I know, Catherine, like you said, you have a small department putting all these numbers together. Appreciate you guys putting all that time together. Appreciate the Board of Ed having special meetings and everybody showing up this evening to share their perspectives. It is heartening to see a community come together, unfortunately. Having it happen around difficult conversations is not fun, but, and I would just say, if board members have questions for me offline, feel free to reach out. If there are members of the community that have questions, want answers about anything, feel free to reach out to me. The Board of Finance email is, let me just double check that I don't give out the wrong thing. Since we're having problems with emails. There it is. BOF Ashford @ townhall.org.
BOF Ashford,
BOF Ashford, yeah.
that's interesting in the system, that doesn't come up, so, I'll have to check.
That's weird. But that's the
I
amount.
had such trouble when I was trying to send it originally.
Mm.
I was going, I don't think that's the right email, but the other one didn't come up at all. Okay.
Okay, yeah, so anyway, feel free to reach out if you have thoughts, questions after this meeting, if you think, oh, I should have said this. I think again, I feel that this year has been positive in terms of the discussion. Some years have been vitriolic, I would say, maybe a little finger pointing. And I think that's something that we have avoided thus far. And I think that that's important that we continue to remember this is a community and everybody has, a stake in it. And some of our interests are different than others based on our life stage, but we're all gonna be in these stages at one point, and we wanna take care of our community the best that we can. I know that's my goal, and I think that's the goal of the Board of Finance, so. Okay, I'll stop talking now. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
I
Thank you.